Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us. It's too sharp, but we would still suggest to wait for 2 more minutes in case more people are joining. So please be patient. We will start in a moment. Thanks a lot. So everyone, welcome again. Thank you very much for your interest in the NAMA facility and Ambition Initiative Round 2. We would like to start. It is 3 minutes past 2. So thanks again. Less than 10 days before Christmas, and you're here. So we appreciate it a lot. It means that you're inspired by the Ambition Initiative and by the NAMA facility. And this is precisely the reason why we have our calls and why we are so excited about having the Ambition Initiative Round 2. Before we start, please take a minute to answer a few of our questions. You can either follow the link published in Q&A, or you can just insert the following bit.ly link in the browser's address. Whatever you use, your smartphone, your laptop, your PC, please just take a minute. We would really, really appreciate it. There are just 3 questions. But it will provide, and we will provide important insights for us. Thanks a lot for that. And now, official welcome. Thank you very much for your interest in the Ambition Initiative Round 2 and in the NAMA facility. Today we will, for those of you who are new and don't know the NAMA facility, we will tell a bit more about this fund and about this climate financing initiative. And of course, we will tell you a bit more, we'll explain you what is Ambition Initiative Round 2. We will also elaborate on the eligibility criteria of the Ambition Initiative. And precisely here already I can give you a hint that we will talk about NDCs, so NDC related eligibility criteria. I guess it will be very interesting, and we will try to provide you with some tangible examples of what those eligibility criteria are. And last but not least, we will also answer some of the usual questions that we receive from you, and we'll provide you with some useful resources that can help you develop your NSP outline, that can provide additional information with regard to the NAMA facility and different calls of the NAMA facility. So everything that can be of help for you to participate in this call and to hopefully be successful. And of course, the main reason of this webinar is, as I said before, to inspire you to use this opportunity to apply under the Ambition Initiative Round 2 and to, in case of success, to join the big portfolio of the NAMA facility and contribute to the reduction of greenhouse gas emissions and climate change mitigation. This is the structure of the webinar. So we will start with a brief technical overview. Then we will introduce to you NAMA facility and Ambition Initiative Round 2. We will talk about eligibility criteria, as I said before, focusing on NDCs, and then we will go into Q&A session. I will not be alone doing all of it, so this would be a proper place to acknowledge and appreciate support of my colleagues. Radina and Octav will join me. My colleague Radina will explain you NAMA facility and will tell you a bit more about the Ambition Initiative. And my colleague Octav will talk you through eligibility criteria and NDC-related eligibility criteria. We also have colleagues at the back end who are supporting us technically. Thanks a lot, Alexandra and Galina, for your help, and we really appreciate it. And now let's move to technical overview. You are participating in this event through Microsoft Teams live events. You will see a control panel in the top right corner of your screen. You are muted automatically, so you will not be able to ask any questions verbally, but please feel free to use the panel and submit questions to our moderator. All questions will be taken in and we will respond to them either individually or as part of clarification notes that will be published on the 20th of December. So no worries with that. We will for sure address your question. With that, I guess we can move to kind of content, very rich content-related part of our webinar, and I will be pleased to give a word to my colleague, Radina. Radina, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Nina, and good morning, good afternoon to everyone who's listening. It is my pleasure to join yet another webinar and guide you through some aspects of the NAMA facility, and in this case, our latest call, the Ambition Initiative Round 2. First, for those who might be joining us for the first time or it's been a while, let's take a close look at who we are. We're the NAMA facility, and we are a multi-donor fund founded in 2013 by Germany and the UK, and in the meantime with Denmark, EU, and the Children's Investment Fund Foundation, the CIF, who joined the latter for the Ambition Initiative call, round 1 and 2. And our donors have made approximately 667 million euros of funding available for what we have now 9 calls for projects. And as you can see on this slide and on the map, we have now 43 projects from what we call NAMA support projects, or NFSPs, across 28 countries and across different sectors. Transport, energy efficiency, renewable energy, forestry, waste, agriculture. It is all in our portfolio. And as you can probably guess, some countries have more projects, more than one project for their country. And yeah, we're very pleased to have now announced another call and look forward to expanding our ever-growing portfolio. And with that, let's take a close look at the Ambition Initiative, which was announced and launched at our COP site event on November 9th, just over a month ago, by our donors, Germany, the UK, and CIF. And we're very pleased to have this second round, which, as most of you might know by now, will follow the same eligibility and assessment criteria, and that is to support partner countries in the implementation of enhanced and ambitious nationally determined contributions, NDCs, in the alignment of these efforts with national green recovery agendas, and in the aligning with NDCP plans for the countries where such plans exist. There's a total of up to 100 million committed to support projects as part of this call. Let's take a moment now to reiterate again, especially for the new colleagues who might be joining the Ambition Initiative and the NANO facility. There are a few key features that I would like to outline here that pertain to both calls, so the round 1 and round 2 that we have now open. The first one is the emphasis on enhanced and ambitious NDCs, as I just mentioned, and we will take a moment, as Nina already hinted, and later on in this webinar, where Octave will provide practical examples as to what we mean here. But basically, our projects and that we'd like to support will need to have a strong focus on this. The second part that I would like to highlight here as a feature of the NANO facility and the Ambition Initiative is the strengthened linkage and support for recovery from the COVID-19 pandemic. We have added a new mandatory indicator here to track how NSPs contribute to countries' efforts in building back greener. Third, and very special to our Ambition Initiative call, is the emphasis on innovation and consideration of applications from projects that might require a small-sized pilot for novel technologies before moving to a larger scale project. And with that, we already selected one project under the first round of Ambition Initiative, namely Costa Rica, and the focus on green hydrogen. Another key feature of the Ambition Initiative, or the initiatives, the 2 rounds, is the upper higher limit of 25 million in comparison to the 20 million we had before. And as in previous calls, applicants could go beyond this threshold if they do provide a good argumentation for this. The last 2, as we've had in the first call, there's a possibility for commercial entities to engage throughout the cycle of the NSPs and could serve as applicant support partners and NSOs. And I'll touch upon this aspect shortly. And last but not least is there's an increased emphasis on the role of global cooperation, and in particular with the NDC partnership, and for those countries where partnership plans exist. And with that, as I preluded, let's take a look at who can submit an NSP outline to the NANO facility. And this is a question we have received previously, and would like to take a moment to recap here. As you can see on the slide, there are 2 stages of the selection process of the NANO facility. On one side, we have the outline phase, and on the other side, we have the proposal phase. For the outline phase, there are 2 different parties who can submit an outline to the NANO facility. On one side, it's the partner national ministry, and on the other side, it's the legal entity. The legal entity is also the designated party which would submit then the proposal to the NANO facility for assessment and funding. What I'd like to stipulate here is that there are different types of legal entities that are eligible, and as I just mentioned in the slide before, commercial entities are also eligible, in addition to development banks, NGOs, IGOs, development agencies, public agencies, etc. And here you can find more information and what are the different requirements to the different stages, specifically in our general information document in the sections that are listed at the bottom line of the slide. So let's now take a look at the process and timeline of the call. Some of our guests might be familiar with this slide, and also we have it, this chart in our general information document, but we'd like to take a moment to guide you through the process and where it fares along the timeline. First, as I already recapped, the call was launched at the sideline of COP26 and will remain open until 30th of April, when it closes at 3 p.m. Central European Summer Time, by when applicants need to have submitted their project outlines. So this is very important to remember for everyone. 30th of April 22 next year, so in just over 4 months, at 3 p.m. Central Eastern Time is when all applications need to have been submitted to the NAMO facility in order to be considered eligible. In terms of the additional eligibility criteria, as I said, Octave will guide us through that in a second. While the poll is open, applicants are invited to raise any questions they might have in terms of understanding the interpretation of the GID. If you have any questions on the outline application documents, and we'll answer those questions in our clarification notes in a regular period. We will also be concluding 2 more webinars, which we'll touch upon again in a second. After the deadline of outline submissions, and all eligible NSP outlines are reviewed by the TSU together with external evaluation team. And I will touch upon the assessment criteria shortly. What is important here to know is that the assessment is split into a desktop and in-depth assessment, and will go from May of next year until about October. And the board of the NAMO facility will then take a funding decision for which NSPs can then move on to the detailed preparation phase. At this stage is when applicants in about October will be notified on the decisions taken, and the selected projects will be invited to further detail their project proposals in what we call the DPP, the detailed preparation phase, and improve their project design. And for this stage, the NAMO facility will provide some financial support. The duration of the DPP is either 10 to 15 months, at the end of which a proposal will be submitted to the NAMO facility for assessment. Those proposals will also undergo a detailed assessment, and only proposals that successfully pass this assessment and show sufficient quality of readiness and ambitiousness will be then recommended to the NAMO facility board for implementation. Upon successful approval for implementation, then commence the last phase, which is the implementation of NSP projects. And especially in this case, with how all the phases the TSU plays an important role, and in implementation is there to support and guide projects. You can find this information also in our G, as I said, and specifically in the section outlined below. One thing that I would like to draw everyone's attention to is the characteristics of the NAMO support projects at the NAMO facility, and what they all have in common. And here, this is, of course, some of them are specific to the NAMO Facility Ambition Initiative call, but also in general as well. And I would like to differentiate as I go along. But first, the NSPs must trigger transformational change. They must be implementation ready, meaning that the financial mechanism must be operational when the project is approved for implementation, so 18 months within that period. So, and we know from our experience this is a very big challenge, and we'd like to, and this is should be the homework and one of the aspects to be worked on as part of the outline. NFPs under the Ambition Initiative call also support and contribute to the implementation of ambitious and enhanced NDCs. NSPs also are embedded in national policies and sector strategies and explicitly mentioned in the NDCs. And under the Ambition Initiative call, those projects also that have NDC partnership plans would need to be aligned with. Also under the Ambition Initiative call, the NSPs need to portray how they contribute to the national plans and green recovery strategies. All NSPs from across the calls have a combination of elements of technical cooperation and financial cooperation, where the TC component typically works on policy reforms, regulation, capacity building, so to say, to improve the enabling environment, while on the other side, the SC component delves into setting up a financial mechanism that reduces or removes investment barriers, channels funds for carbon neutral development, and leverages additional funds from private and public sectors. Last but not least, the NSPs have a set duration, and it is very important that they have a phase-out strategy to ensure long-term sustainability, and the transformation that was triggered can be sustained and remain reversible. So with that, those are the 5 aspects we wanted to highlight to you. Next, I would like to take a look and guide you through the application documents under the Ambition Initiative Round 2. Here I can already relieve some of the anticipation to say that there are no major changes since the previous call. So for those of you who are familiar with the calls and with the previous call, there are no substantial changes or updates from our side. On the left, we can take a look at the outline template. The one update we provided was that suggested word for the suggested word count for the outline has now been increased from 10,000 to 11,000 words in order to give applicants the opportunity to explain their rationale and proposal. And then also, as you go along through the document, you will find guiding questions that have to do with specific expectations, but also specific questions to the features of the Ambition Initiative that are outlined here, such as reference to the enhanced and ambitious NDCs, reference to country and sector policies, NDC, as I said, the COVID-19 strategy, context, etc. So there are a lot of guiding questions in there, and please consider them as you prepare your outlines. On the right, we have our mandatory annexes. And here, what I'd like to draw to your attention is, for those who might have already downloaded documents, is that, so there are no changes. We have 6 mandatory annexes where the DPP concept and budget are split into 2, as well as the financial mechanism and business model are split into 2 annexes as well. The Annex 6 on the mitigation potential is currently being finalized and will be uploaded on the NAMA facility website on December 20th. So if you've already downloaded the documents, make sure to get back to our website in 5 days' time to get the updated version of the Annex 6, as right now we only have a dummy in there. And also Annex 4 has undergone a very small update, specifically on providing additional guidelines and instructions. So a new version will also be uploaded on December 20th. So just a summary, no big changes, some updates in terms of providing more guidance and instructions. And on December 20th, we'll publish the updated Annex 4 DPP budget plus the Annex 6 on the mitigation potential. And last but not least, last year, as part of the previous calls, we also prepared a document called the Do's and Don'ts before you submit your NSP outline, and this provides additional guidance and information as you prepare your outline and aspects to keep an eye out for. Some are very good for as you're doing quality control in the end, but some are very important as you consider and shape your outline. And with that, I would like to quickly go through the eligibility or the assessment of outlines that we have at an AMA facility. And then all the information that I'm covering right now can also be found in our general information document, but I'll make reference again to that. First, as part of the assessment, there's a two-stage assessment process. The first, we take a look at the eligibility of NSPs, which are the formal criteria that NSPs need to meet in order to be considered eligible and go into the actual assessment. I will not go into detail here because my colleague Octave will provide us more guidance there in a second. But what's important to note is that non-eligibility may lead to an outline not being taken further into the next assessment. So the second stage, the second step is the qualitative evaluation, where we apply a equally weighted assessment between ambition and feasibility, where both are scored with a maximum of 25 points. And then within each criterion, then you can see the different sub-criterion, for ambition being potential for transformation of change, financial ambition, mitigation potential, where the first has the highest amount of points. And then under feasibility, the project rationale, project design, and DPP concept. We have further delineated these in our GID, in the general information documents. So do please take a look in order to understand what exactly we're looking for here. And last but not least, I've been referring a lot to this general information document, and here it is. It is on our website. You can also download it. Once we make the PowerPoint presentation ready, there will be a link to it. But what I would like to also stress here is that this is a very important document that provides, as I've referenced it several times, provides a lot of information on and describes the project cycle, the assessment process, and the expectations against which NSPs are assessed. So please do take a moment to quickly go, not quickly, but to go through it. And if you have questions, we're there to support that. And as we've done in the past, I'm pleased to inform you that we will publish a courtesy translation in French and Spanish shortly, namely on the 20th of December, when we also post the rest of the outline annexes. So mark your calendars, 20th of December is when we'll have the courtesy translations as well as the updated annexes. And with that, I would like to stop here and give the word now to Octave, who will guide us through the eligibility criteria and give us more insights into NDCs.
Thank you very much, Radina, and a warm welcome from my side to all of those listening in today. So I will take this opportunity to briefly take you through some of the key eligibility criteria for the second round of the Ambition Initiative, as we've been pointing to earlier in this webinar. Once we receive outlines from applicants, we look at the following things. So firstly, of course, the timely submission of the outline, which, as you've been told, means by the 30th of April 2022 at 3 p.m. Central European Summertime. We'll also be checking, like for the first round of the Ambition Initiative, that the country in which the NSP will be implemented has an updated NDC, which is presented to the UNFCCC by the end of COP26, and also meets the definition of ambitious and enhanced NDCs as is specified in the GID. So note here that when we say updated NDC, in the context of this presentation, we refer either to what's known as a first updated or second NDC. That's really only a terminology issue that some countries choose to label their submission to the UNFCCC as an update of the previous text, while other countries opt for the name second submission altogether. So beyond these two very important issues, we also want to make sure that the documents are complete and in English language only, that the funding volume for implementation is between 5 to 25 million bandwidth, that the DPP duration is either 10 or 15 months, that the country is eligible for development funding, and so on. So the list is not exhaustive here, and we would warmly recommend that you consult GID section 5.1.3 for the full list of eligibility criteria. Please note that failure to meet any of these criteria would lead to the outline not being taken further in the assessment. So in the past, we've had a number of outlines which have failed to pass this formal eligibility check, which has meant that they were not able to be considered for NUMA facility funding. Moving on now to the more detailed information about what it means to be an ambitious and enhanced NDC. So I'd like to walk you through the criteria that have to be met, firstly, for an NDC to be considered as ambitious, according to the NUMA facilities definition. For an NDC to be considered as ambitious, several criteria have to be met. By several, we mean at least two. The first sub-criteria that could be met by an NDC is compatibility with the global agreed temperature limit under the Paris Agreement. The second is an NDC which implies a significant reduction of economy-wide greenhouse gases below business as usual emission trajectories. So this second point essentially requires that the NDC submitted by the country accurately describes a BAU trajectory. For this, there must be a scenario that is realistic, so consistent with historic data and trends, ideally that distinguishes between conditional and unconditional targets of the country. Essentially, what we're looking for here is for an NDC to offer a convincing answer to the question, what emission level will be reached if unconditional and conditional targets are fully met. The third point we'll be looking for under this ambitious criteria is whether there is a rapid reduction in key emitting sectors in the NDC. So this means having an indication not only of an economy-wide target, but also an understanding of which sectors will be put to contribution and what will be the share of their contribution to the total mitigation target. The fourth criteria is an early peaking of GHG emissions described in the NDC. And the fifth and last criteria is an alignment with a net zero target. So once again, to summarize, when we think about ambition, the key is the emissions reduction pathway. And out of these 5 sub-criteria that you see here, and that you'll also be able to find in section 4.1 of the GID, 2 of them have to be met for the NDC to qualify as ambitious. And we obviously encourage you to take a look in your own time at this section 4.1 to go over all this information. So now I'd like to move on to the enhancement part. And we require countries applying to the second round of the Ambition Initiative that their NDC meets at least one of the following criteria. The first is a strengthening of mitigation targets and actions over time. For this, we'll look mainly at national policy frameworks and to what extent these have put a greater emphasis over time on mitigation. The second sub-criteria is a strengthening of emission reduction goals. The important thing here is for us to see that the type of goal has remained consistent, or if not, then this difference must be explained. What I mean by this is, for instance, if we have an initial NDC that speaks or that puts forward a 15% reduction target below 2010 levels, for example, if the updated NDC then refers to a 27% reduction or greater or lower, but this time below a business as usual trajectory rather than a certain year, then this could actually translate to a weaker target. So ideally, NDCs should take the reader through a robust methodology and present sound figures which clearly show how the emission reduction goals have been strengthened. This is why we say that for enhancement, comparison with the previous NDC is key. The third sub-criterion in the enhancement category is the broadening of the scope of the NDC to include a wider coverage of either sectors or gases. So this could mean, for instance, taking industrial processes into account in an updated NDC when this was not the case in a previous version. The fourth and final sub-criterion is a movement from conditional to unconditional targets, which are deemed to be stronger, shortening timelines, and or adding policy measures. So once again, out of these 4 sub-criteria, only one of them has to be met for the NDC to qualify as enhanced. And as before, again, we warmly recommend that you refer to section 4.1 of the General Information document for full information on the topic. So now that I've taken you through these, I'd like to present you with a short fictional example from the country of Titania to provide some tangible insights into what a formal eligibility check could look like. So welcome to Titania. This is an island nation that serves as a fictional example to applicants. This fictional example was actually developed as part of the 7th call to the NAMA facility. Some of you may remember it, and you can find more information and material on Titania on the NAMA facility website, such as a sample NSP outline submission. We've decided to use this fictional example to give you tangible insights into what a formal eligibility assessment could look like. Of course, a small disclaimer, given the large number of criteria that we've just touched on, not all of which will appear here, there are in reality, many ways in which a country could either fail or succeed at the eligibility assessment stage. So this is just one example of the combination that could occur. So first of all, we're interested in the status of Titania's NDC submission to the UNFCCC. As you can see from the slide, after ratifying the Paris Agreement in 2016, Titania submitted a first NDC to the UNFCCC in February 2017, and then an updated version of this in October 2021. So under these conditions, the fictional country of Titania does fulfill the condition of having submitted an updated NDC before the November 13 deadline, which is the end of COP26. Remember, however, that the submission of an updated NDC by the indicated deadline is not sufficient in itself for the applicant country to be deemed formally eligible. It also has to meet the desired criteria for ambition and enhancement that we've just touched on. So let's now take a look at some extracts from Titania's original and updated NDC submissions to see how the country fares in this regard. So firstly, we'll take a look at economy-wide GHG mitigation targets. And here we see that both conditional and unconditional targets have increased in the updated submission. Note that the target year and the baseline year have been kept constant across both documents, which means that the targets are safely comparable. So given this, the updated NDC would meet sub-criterion 2 of the ambition criteria, which is a significant reduction of economy-wide GHG emissions, as well as sub-criterion 2 of the enhancement criteria, which is a strengthening in emissions reduction goals. So we've given 2 ticks here, one for an ambition sub-criterion that is met and one for an enhancement sub-criterion that is met. Second, we'll now consider the sectoral breakdown for this overall target. So in the first submission, there was no such breakdown, but in the updated submission, there's a clear presentation of which share of reductions will be taken on by which sectors. Therefore, the updated NDC meets sub-criterion 3 of the ambition criteria, which is a rapid reduction in greenhouse gases in key emitting sectors. So we mark that as a tick to show that another ambition sub-criterion has been met. Finally, we look at the scope of Titania's NDC, and we see that there have been no additional gases or sectors that have been added in the updated NDC. So because of this, the document fails to meet sub-criterion 3 of the enhancement criteria, which is a broadening of the scope to include a wider coverage of sectors or gases. Nonetheless, looking at these criteria alone, Titania, we see, would fulfill 2 ambition sub-criteria, shown as green tick marks, and 1 enhancement criterion, which is the blue tick mark, meaning that its updated NDC would, under these conditions, qualify as both ambitious and enhanced. So given all these assumptions and without looking to the other sub-criteria that we haven't touched on in this example, Titania would pass the eligibility check and would be able to have its projects considered for funding by the NAMA facility. So with this, I'd like to bring a close to this section on eligibility criteria, and I would hand over the word back to my colleague Nina, who will now lead us through the Q&A section of the webinar.
Thank you very much, Octave. Thank you very much, Radina. I guess it was a very informative and very rich in terms of the content and, of course, very useful information provided. And as usually, tangible examples are something that can make quite a theoretical description of requirements more comprehensible. At the same time, I would like to again emphasize that it was a fictional example, and as Octave already said, there are many, many ways how a country can, how NDCs can be considered in terms of ambition and enhancement based on the criteria outlined in the Ambition Initiative Round 2 of the NAMA facility. Now we will move to Q&A. I would also have a small disclaimer here because those are the questions that we usually receive from participants. So we compiled a brief section based on it. As said before, we will answer your questions that we received today during this webinar, either individually or we'll address them in clarification notes. But we probably will not be able to take any live questions that are posted today and answer them straightforward. So again, this Q&A will be a compilation of the questions that we usually receive from the applicants and that in some or another form have been addressed as part of the clarification notes in the previous calls of the NAMA facility. And of course, when answering those questions, I will be supported by Octave and Radina, as you see they're experts in as a general information about the call, or in case of Octave, very insightful knowledge on NDCs. So the first question that we prepared for you, I guess, may arise for some reading through JID or also seeing the Information Ambition Initiative Round 2 on the website. So it is stated in the General Information document that in order to be eligible under the Ambition Initiative Round 2, countries have to submit their first updated or second NDCs to UNFCCC by the end of COP26. Which date exactly would that be? So Octave, I guess this question would go to you, and would you be able to provide an answer?
Yes, absolutely. So COP26 in Glasgow officially ended on the 13th of November with the adoption of the Glasgow Climate Pact. And that was one day after the scheduled conclusion. Therefore, this is the date that we're going with. And in order to be eligible under the second round of the Ambition Initiative, countries must have submitted their updated NDC to the UNFCCC by the 13th of November, inclusively, so that including the 13th of November, but no later than that.
Thank you very much, Octave. And then let's move on to the second question. It is one regarding the internationally transferred mitigation outcomes. I guess quite relevant as well because there are so many discussions regarding Article 6, and I guess some significant progress was also achieved in Glasgow. So will a first updated NDC or a second NDC envisioning a country's participation in internationally transferred mitigation outcomes score in terms of ambitious NDCs, according to the NAMA facility's definition of enhanced and ambitious NDCs? So Octave, I guess you're again best place to respond to this question because you are an expert in the requirements outlined in the NAMA facility in this regard.
So the short answer is no. The inclusion of ITMOs, as you said, would not be considered an increase in the NDC's ambition. Now, while ITMOs can serve to encourage countries to define a higher mitigation goal, we at the NAMA facility consider them as a vehicle and not as an enhanced target themselves. So this would not work, no.
Thank you very much, Octave. I will then move on to other questions. So question 3. Is there a minimum contribution expected from national implementing partners or the NSO, NAMA support organization? I guess in this case, Radina would be able to help me because she knows very well requirements to the NAMA support projects on the outline stage and in the proposal stage, also assessment criteria. So Radina, please, could you tell us what would be a correct response to this question?
Thank you, Nina. Very good question that we can not recap or stress enough in our webinars and clarification notes. And the short answer is no, there's no minimum that the NAMA facility sets as a contribution from the public or private sector sources of funding, neither in absolute nor in relative terms. What is important here is to demonstrate that the funding provided by the NAMA facility is most efficiently used to achieve the ambitious mitigation targets that are envisioned by the NSPs, and also in particular by leveraging additional finance. The leverage ratio is taken into consideration by looking at the country and sector-specific context during the assessment of each outline. But what we can tell applicants is that from the NSPs that we've selected in previous calls, they propose an average financial leverage ratio of about 1 to 7, meaning that for each euro that the NAMA facility funding provides, an NSP mobilizes further 7 euros in additional investment.
Thank you very much, Radina. Then let's go for another question. Are proposals and policy research for low carbon development eligible, given that this might be relevant for many countries? So I guess indeed a very relevant question. What is the take of the NAMA facility on that?
Also a good question. We have a new call, new features, but the short answer again is no. In general, policy research projects or other research projects are not eligible for funding, as this goes beyond the scope of the NAMA facility and the ambition initiative call. The objective of the NAMA facility is to support countries in implementing ambitious mitigation actions. But under the ambition initiative call, what we'd like to note here is that with this call, we have a strengthened emphasis on innovation in the context of raising NDC ambition, and we consider in the consideration of applications for NSPs that might require a small-sized pilot for novel technologies before moving on into a larger scale projects. But this focus on novel technology is optional, but it's a good opportunity.
Thank you very much, Radina. I guess this is clear. And I guess this would be the last question that we would provide a response to as part of this Q&A session. Also quite important question that we receive often. I would be open about that. Is there an option to receive the NAMA facility's feedback on a project idea before officially submitting the outline? So Radina, is there an opportunity for that?
No, the call is open. It's not possible. In line with the NAMA facility's policy and clarifications, the TSU does not provide any individual advice on project concepts in order to ensure a transparent and fair competition among all applicants. And here, what we can not stress enough is that we have plenty of opportunities to provide you with additional guidance and clarifications. So do take the opportunity to ask us questions that pertain to general questions and of the understanding of the GID and the application documents. And we have webinars, the one today, the ones we'll hold next year, and plenty of documents to guide applicants throughout this process.
Thank you very much, Radina. And yeah, this is, I guess, it provides a very good transition towards the next slides that I would like to present and to slowly wrap up our webinar. This will be useful sources of information for the participants. So as Radina already said, we had a wealth of resources on the NAMO facility website, and we also try to keep them up to date to always provide you with new information or to provide you with more precise guidance, also based on the issues that are raised during the calls as part of the, for example, clarification requests, or also what we see in the NSP outline, the things that can be improved in our sites. We always try to update this information and provide more guidance for you. Of course, there are a few central documents. Those are application documents and Ambition Initiative Round 2 General Information document. Cannot be stressed enough that GID, it is important to go through GID. It is important to know information contained there. It is important because it provides guidance for your NSP outline development and for the development of your annexes. As we said already, there will be a few updates on the 20th of December, so make sure to check the website and to use only the latest version of the annexes created specifically for this call. So please check our website on the 20th of December or after 20th of December to have an updated Annex 6 on greenhouse gas emission mitigation reductions and a slightly updated Annex 4B containing a bit more instructions on how to fill it in. And we hope that it will make your work also a bit easier because of the guidance and instructions provided there. Of course, take a look at the M&E framework, monitoring and evaluation framework. This is something that would help you to define your log frame at the NAMO support project outline stage, but also will be very instrumental in the further, if your NSP outline is successful, it will be very instrumental in the next stages of the proposal development and hopefully implementation. We have some webinars, for example, on the 7th call, NSP outline development. And this is the webinar where we used the example of Tatinia, the ones that Octave have already been referring to. And important to stress that, of course, the requirements of the Ambition Initiative Round 1 and Ambition Initiative Round 2 are a bit different from the 7th call. Nevertheless, the core characteristics and criteria of the NSP, of the NAMO support projects, are addressed as part of the 7th call. So we would really encourage you to either check this webinar or to check the fictional NSP outline towards carbon neutral Tatinia now. We have a NAMO facility podcast, Introduction to Annex 6, Greenhouse Gas Mitigation Potential. Of course, we mentioned that this annex will be updated, but again, the core information, the interface of this outline of this Excel file, how should it be filled, what information is required, you can already take a look at it now and listen to the NAMO facility podcast on Annex 6. There is a webinar on financial mechanism and the NAMO support project, because again, Radina mentioned that it is an important characteristic of the NAMO support project, a combination of the technical cooperation component and financial cooperation component. So in order to better understand how to shape, how to develop your financial cooperation component, what financial mechanism can help to overcome barrier for the mitigation technology or mitigation practice that your NSP plans to introduce, you can always listen into this webinar. Last but not least, there is a NAMO facility podcast on an rather new Annex 5A on financial mechanism. The annex was introduced last year, was significantly updated for the Ambition Initiative call. This time around, there were no changes to Annex 5A, so you can listen into the podcast, you can check the document, and hopefully it will help you to fill in this annex. And of course, further information. There are clarification and FAQs on the Ambition Initiative. We will publish their webinars. I will address this topic a bit later on. In terms of clarifications and FAQs, one FAQ already published on the website under the Ambition Initiative Round 2, and we will continue publishing clarification notes. There is a working definition of transformational change, because again, as you remember, NSPs are required to have to be able to induce this transformational change towards carbon neutral, ideally pathway of the countries that they are implemented in. Sustainable development co-benefits in the NAMA facility. You can also take a look at what is meant under this requirement, because also something very important about the NAMA support project is that they of course generate co-benefits of different types, environmental, social, economic, and to better understand what it is and to better understand how to instrumentalize it in your NSP outline, you can take a look at on our website. 10 things about the NAMA facility that you always wanted to know but never dared to ask. I really encourage you to look into this document because it is quite exciting. Do's and don'ts before you submit your NSP outline. Radina has already referred to it. We just compiled a few recommendations based on our experience gathered from NSP outlines. So from the previous calls, take a look at it. Probably, I'm sure that it will provide a very useful information for you, and probably also will inspire you in terms of how to make your outline better. And as said already a few times, there is also a fictional NSP outline towards carbon neutral Titania. Now, if you need an example of how an NSP outline can be developed, how can it look like, please make sure to check what was developed by the NAMA facility for the fictional country of Titania. And now, what are the next steps? As usually, we will have a few webinars before the call closes. On the 16th February 2022, we will focus on NSP outline development. We'll provide you with some practical examples. I can already now hint towards FLU sector. So if you plan something in with regard to agriculture, forestry, land use, make sure to also block your time on 16th of February and to listen into the webinar. On the 23rd March 2022, we will have the last webinar for Ambition Initiative Round 2 on clarification and FAQs. We will answer your questions, among common questions, and we'll also give you an opportunity to ask questions. But again, questions can be asked all the time. You can just send them to the technical support unit of the NAMA facility at contact@namafacility.org, and we will either respond to you individually or we'll include your question to the clarification notes. Regarding clarifications, there will be a few documents that will be published based on a rolling basis to address your questions as soon as possible. The next round of clarifications will be published on the 20th of December. If you want your questions to be answered, if you have questions resulting from this webinar, just make sure to submit them to the NAMA facility until 16th December EOB, so tomorrow, end of business, and then we will be able to process it and take it into the clarification notes published on the 20th of December. If you submit your question a bit later, then it will be published on the 2nd of February 2022, because this is when clarification notes number 2 will be published. We also have a 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th circle of publication of clarification notes, and you can see the dates. So up until 20th of April, in order for your question to be featured in the last clarification on the 20th of April, you would be required to submit your questions by 17th April close of business, but we will also provide instructions on the NAMA facility website. In any case, there is plenty of time, and we will try, of course, to address your questions as good as we can. And on the NAMA facility website, there is a dedicated page for Ambition Initiative Round 2, where you can find all information, starting from application documents and general information document, and finishing with the clarification notes and FAQs. Last but not least, the most important outtake probably from this webinar is just remember, if you want to participate in Ambition Initiative Round 2, your NSP outline should be submitted to us by 30th April 2022, 3 p.m. Central European Summer Time. And with that, sharp 3 p.m. sharp, I will finish this webinar. Thank you very much for your participation. If you haven't done that yet, please make sure to participate in our survey. There are only 3 questions. It will not take a lot of your time, but will really greatly help us and support us in our efforts. So thanks a lot. Thanks a lot to my colleagues, to Radina and Octave, for their parts and for their presentations. Thanks a lot for Galina and Alexandra, our colleagues at the backend, supporting us with all the technical specifications and on the technical side of this webinar. And good luck to you. Have a great festive season. And we hope that we inspired you and provided you with useful information, and that now you're really keen to develop an outstanding NSP outline and participate in the Ambition Initiative Round 2. Thank you very much and have a great rest of the day wherever you are. Bye-bye.